Hello, I am Misty from Mystic Fabrics, and I am going to be talking about shrinkage today because normally when I get an email about fabric, it is that the size doesn't match the measurements on the card, or they counted like the stitches per inch and it didn't match. So all of my fabrics I get on this big roll. Well, 90% of my fabrics. There's still a few that I don't get on the roll, but like 20 count Aida is the only short one that I have on the big roll. They don't make it on the big rolls, so it's 43 inches. This is 28 linen, 28 Lugana, 32 Lugana, 32 linen is under here, 32 opal linen, and then I've got opal Lugana down here. I have some separate stuff down here that you can't see. I have 36 and 40 linen, unsized, and all of my Aida is unsized as well. So with the unsized, that means that there are no starches on the fabrics, so I don't have to pre-wash those. So when it first comes in, it is 55 inches. Of course, I forgot my measuring tape, but I have my yardstick in here, so we'll just use that. So this is a 55-inch roll. 55 inch is all of the high counts, anything 28 and above. Aida comes in a 59-inch roll. Opal Aida is also 59 inches. I don't know why the difference is. It's probably something with the weaving machines on what they can handle, the types of weaving machines. So I also have various counts. I have checked before to see that stuff shrinks, like to show how much. But I've never checked every count. So we're going to do 28 Lugana, 32 Lugana, 32 linen, 40 linen, and 36 linen and tell the difference. First off, this is 28 Lugana, and this is 32 Lugana. And I can tell the difference between these two counts because I serge color coded. So anytime I have a 28 Lugana or a 32 Lugana, I know 28 is always white, and I know 32 is always black. So that helps me out, and if you lose a tag and ever don't know, you can message me and I can tell you what count your fabric is. So I'm going to put everything on this 32 Lugana because everything is 55 inches, so it really doesn't matter, and it's the most convenient place to lay it. So I'm going to line it up on one side. This is selvage to selvage. So selvage is the outside. When it's on a weaving machine, it has to have it outside. So when it runs through the machine, it's going to run like this. So you're going to have your outside and your running length. So you see this nice gap right here. Let's get the handy dandy Menards yardstick. And we've got almost 6 inches, a little bit over 5.5 inches that it shrunk. So the 55 inch went down below 50 inches. And so that's a nice amount of shrinkage. So you're like, Misty, why don't you put that on your tag? Well, you're going to see that there's a lot of variation between counts and everything that shrinks different. But the original size that I cut was a yard of fabric by 55 inches. So I know that when I cut it, that's what it was. And hang on a minute. This is my friend Kitty. He is sneaking in here. He knows he's not allowed in the fabric room because he comes in here and he eats threads. And he eats a lot of threads. He tears up my sewing machine. He hides behind the fabric so I can't get him out. But he's still a good boy, and I love him. Get out of here, kitty. Okay. So 32 Lugana. This is, oh, I guess I could tell you the colors. This one was Haley's Garden on 28 Lugana. This one is Sea Glass on 32 Lugana. So let's line this one up. I'm sorry you guys have to look at my back. I know that's not fun. All right, already you can see that 32 didn't shrink quite as much. Yardstick. All right, let's go backwards. So here we've only got 4 1/4 inches. But when they were original, let's see, 28, 32. You can see that the rolls are the same size. This one's 28 and this one's 32. So 32 Lugana is about 4 inches shrinkage. Water, especially hot water, shrinks fabric. Lugana is made from cotton rayon blend. Rayon shrinks a lot, as you can see. So let's do 32 linen. The color coding on my linen is just like on my Lugana. 28 would be white, which it's missing because I don't have any 28 right now. 32 is black, 36 is white, 40 is black. And it's always like that. So this is 32 linen in reflection. It's a very pretty color. Okay. 32 linen shrinks about 3 1/2 inches, not as much as the Lugana. So another question, I'm going to pause for a second here. Another question that I get is, why is it called a fat quarter and not a quarter? So a yard is 36 inches. Okay. Which, wow, that shrinks that way too. I always cut 2 inches bigger. So when I cut, I pull down, I measure, and I cut here. So I always cut 2 inches bigger than a yard, so I cut at 36. So a quarter yard, so a half yard is 18. A quarter yard would be 9. So a yard of fabric is 36. A quarter yard would be 9 inches. Run selvage to selvage. A half yard would be 18 inches, selvage to selvage. But a fat quarter or a fat half is cut to where you have the most usable area inside of that yard. So this is a full yard. You fold it this way. This is a fat half, and you fold it this way, and that's a fat quarter. This, one more fold, would be a fat eighth. So you have a more usable area of fabric to stitch on. If you are a quilter, then you get a quarter yard. It's probably the 9 inch. If you get fat quarters, then it's folded selvage to selvage like this. So the more you know. I'm sorry if I'm not very good at this. I'm really trying and I'm really scared. Okay, moving on. I feel like I'm gonna have a heart attack. Okay. This one is, what color is this? Silver Mist in 36 linen. A little floppier. A lot floppier. And let's see. We have right at 3 1/2 inches of shrinkage on 36. I hope somebody's taking notes because I'm not writing any of this down. Oh. Okay, and we have 40 linen. This is Timeworn. I think, I'm going to guess that this shrinks the least because it's the tightest weave. But I don't know because I have never compared all of the shrinkage. All right, let's see. We have 3 3/4. Shrinks more than 36 does. So, excuse me. So I dye this in one piece and then I cut it up. And there's a reason for that. When I wash fat quarters, they get really, really, really wrinkly. In my washer, it's the high spin to get all the moisture out. And when it spins it, especially like 16 Aida, it will take it and it will squeeze it and pull it like this way. And so on the edges of the fat quarter, I get really deep wrinkles that I can't get out. But when I wash and dye a yard, I can get the wrinkles out with iron better. I think that across the piece, it's a more even cat hair. Dum, dum, dum. Okay. It's a more even dye across the whole thing when I dye in a yard. So I dye everything in a yard. And then I post any spares that I have in my ready to ship album. This is, I don't know if I told you, this is Timeworn. It's a fairly new color. So the same thing for a dyed yard or an undyed yard. I pull selvage to selvage, put a crease in it, and then I cut it in half. And then I do the same thing on the sides, put edge to edge, and then I cut that in half. And then I serge the smaller piece. I'm sure that some people do prefer doing it in the fat quarters, but that's just the way that I like to do it after all these years. I think it looks better when I present it to my customers. So that's the way I do it. Okay, I'm going to pause this and I'm going to move over to the Aida side and I'll be back. Okay, now we're on the Aida side. The color coding is the same with Aida. All of my 14 Aida is serged in white. All of my 16 is serged in black. And all of my 18 is serged in white. It's always been like that. 20 is also in black. It's the same thing. Black, white, black, white, black, white. So 14 Aida and 28 linen, because it's doubled, both white. 16 Aida, 32 linen, both black. 18 Aida, 36 linen, both white. 20 Aida, 40 linen, same fabric, both black. I hope that makes sense. I'm going to start putting it on the back of the fabric cards so that later on, if you need it, you could reference it. Okay, we're going to be measuring on, I'll measure on this one. This is 18 Aida. All of these are 59 inches to the edge. This one is 14 Aida, and it is called Something Blue. And get this lined up. Okay, let's see. We have 4 inches of shrinkage on 14 Aida. $16 Aida. This is Wisteria. I love this color. It's so pretty. It's one of my first fabric of the month colors that I did a long time ago. It is a classic. 16 Aida is about 3 inches of shrinkage. And 18 Aida. This is sea glass. Sea glass is a funny one because every time I dye it different. And I always have. Nobody's ever made a pattern on it. And I look at sea glass, like natural sea glass, and you are never going to find the same 2 pieces of sea glass. So I don't think that I should have to dye the same 2 colors of sea glass. Probably wrong on my part, but I've never had any complaints. So this one's a little bit darker than some. I do have a dark sea glass too. Those are pretty consistent. But I have dyed sea glass lighter than this. I have dyed sea glass darker than this. But it's always original. And I don't know if I'll ever follow a strict recipe for this color because I think it's fun to mix it up. And 18 count, 3.5 inches of shrinkage. So when you shrink 14 and it gets smaller, the count, if you measure it with a stitch gauge, it might measure 15 or 16, depending on how much it shrank, how hot the water was, the weave on the original fabric. Same thing with 16. It might measure 18 to 20. 18 might measure 20 to 22. The piece of fabric is the same size. So if you're strict and you're like, I only stitch on 16 Aida because I can't see 18 Aida. When you get hand-dyed fabric, you might want to try a 14 because it's going to shrink almost to a 16. Now, when you measure it for a pattern or anything like that, go by the original count on the fabric, because on a fat quarter, like this is a white one, on a fat quarter, this dimension, there are a certain amount of threads this way and a certain amount of threads this way. This is 32 Lugana. Even if it shrinks to this size, if it shrunk this small, it would still have the same amount of threads both directions. It may not be the same amount of threads per inch, but it still has the same amount of threads. So when you're planning out a pattern, you can use the original size to plan out that pattern. The only difference is going to make your X's might look a little bit smaller than they would on a white piece. But as you work with it and as you pull it, it's going to stretch out. Now, something else that I do just for myself, it's not as bad now as it used to be, but sometimes the fabric gets a little bit of, I want to say, like cockeyed. So before I use a piece of my fabric, I take it and I stretch it out, because dyeing can make the fabric stiff. And for me, I like the flop. So I use softener that's for dyed fabrics on it, but sometimes they can still be a little bit stiff. So it's okay to stretch it out side to side, kind of work it and get it back, and then mount it in your frame. And then your fabric will be okay. Because after you wash it, kitty, don't start. After you wash it, it's going to shrink again. And that's how you get your stitches to pop at the end. If anyone is interested, I will have a finished piece washing class on my next video, because when I was at StitchCon, there were a lot of people that were like, can you wash your fabrics? Are your fabrics color fast? Yes, they are. I use fiber reactive dye. Fiber reactive dye is the type of dye that you are supposed to use on cotton or linen natural fabrics. Lugana is a cotton rayon blend, but the dye still sticks to it because of the cotton. So Lugana might let go of a little bit more dye. I had one that was dyed a darker color that did let off a little bit, but the dye is dead because of the activator that I put on it. The dye only stays active before you put the activator on it. The activator makes it attached to the fibers, and then the dye is spent. So you can like dip your finger into the dye and it doesn't even dye your skin anymore. Some of the magic molecular properties of dye, I really don't understand a whole lot of it. I know that I put dye on fabric, it dyes. I put activator on it, let it sit, and then I wash it. So that's my extent of my knowledge. Next time, if you want, I can do a washing video, or I can do an explanation of more on the differences in the different types of fabrics and show you kind of close up what looks different, because I have all of them hanging side by side, and I do everything in order: 14, 16, 18, 14, 16, 18, 14, 16, 18, all the way down. Just like that one's a little bit mixed up, but I moved my more popular ones to the top because it's easier to cut. But I might be getting rid of the Charles Craft to make room for the 36, what's it called, modal. It's a 36 even weave that's really nice, and 40 Verdal. That's also an even weave, and they're both really soft. They feel like a baby blanket, and they seem to be gaining in popularity. So if I can get those in a roll, I might stop carrying the Charles Craft, because honestly, Charles Craft changed their fabric, and I don't like the changes that they made. It's not as thick, and it doesn't dye as well as it used to. It dyes very, very light, and I'm not real crazy about it. I think that's it. I'm sorry that this is so bad. It's really hard sitting in a room talking to yourself. I got the mom glitter going on, and I'm scared to death, but boop. I will try this again later, so I hope you enjoyed learning about shrinkage, even when it's not in the pool. See you guys later. Bye. Well, if you stuck around, I figured I would show you a few of the colors, since I have so many dyed up right now. We have everything else. My most recent batch was actually a little bit lighter than this. I moved on to a new jar, and sometimes when you switch jars, they lighten up a little bit or get a little bit darker. But this is Timeworn. You saw that in the first half of the video. This is Timeworn in linen. So the Lugana is a little bit lighter. Lately, 28 Lugana has been dyeing a little bit lighter than 32. This is Neutrality. My last batch of that was a little lighter too. I don't know why. Spending Amnesia. It's a nice green. It is called Spending Amnesia because it is the color of money. Olympia, one of my favorites. It is beige and, well, ecru and silver. And then here's another piece of sea glass. Sea glass is always my favorite on 14 Aida. These areas here that are showing up really dark are not that dark. It's modeled, but it's not as extreme as it shows up on camera. It's a pretty color. And we have Wisteria. And this is Haley's Garden. Same with this. It doesn't really show up very good on camera or film. But these areas that are showing up really dark are not that dark. All this is about the same color. It is olive and pink. This is Silver Mist. It is a very, very lightly modeled gray, silver color. This is my favorite. This is called Atypical. It is a vanilla with brown and rust on it. And there's some more Wisteria. This is Wisteria on linen and Aida. And you can see that I get them pretty close in shade. Some more Silver Mist. Two more pieces. This is linen, and that's Lugana. Almost exactly the same shade. Some more Timeworn. 28 versus 32 Lugana. Wisteria in Lugana. Got these all mixed up because I iron them how they dry. And I do throw Lugana into the dryer because it makes a lot of lint. This is Veterus. Both of these are linen. It's a very antique-y looking beige, and it's got some green tones in it. I'll scoot that over. More of my favorite. This is Atypical. This piece right here is lovely. Aida linen and 40 linen. It's so pretty, and it's so pretty to stitch on. I love, love, love that color. Some more sea glass. Lugana and Aida. Another piece of Olympia. Beige and silver together. There is Reflection in Lugana. Reflection in linen, which it does get a little bit darker. Aida and another linen. So even between the two linens, you have two different shades, but fairly even across all the fabric types. This is Mother Nature. The picture online really sucks. It shows really green. It does have a lot of green in it. For some reason, I just cannot get good photos of this color. It is Veterus, that beige color that I had back there, and green. So it's beige and green together. And I've got it in linen. So linen is a little bit darker than Lugana. Linen. Aida. And here's another linen. This one gets kind of wild. Okay. This is Olympia in linen. Another linen. Another linen. Olympia in Aida. Aida 18. Aida 16. And here's another piece of Spending Amnesia. Okay. Now we have Dreamy. I love this color. This color is not going to be around much longer because they discontinued a lot of blue dye after COVID. So what I bought originally 5 pounds of this dye, and I've only got about a pound or 2 left. So when that dye is gone, this color is going to be gone forever. Okay. This is Aida Haley's Garden. I love this piece. It's so pretty. I love the way that the pink just looks like flowers everywhere. I keep finding more past colors. This is Lugana Atypical. It does the flowers too. So pretty. Such a feminine color. And a defect, so I'll be having to cut this piece out. Atypical does get a lot of blue spots, which is a pain, but totally worth it for that color. 100% worth it. Oh. I found more Dreamy. So we've got Dreamy Lugana, Dreamy Aida, 14 and 16. 14 is usually the darkest of all the Aidas on the Zweigart. Which is Brew, which is green and orange. Always, always, always beautiful on Lugana. 20 Aida. It actually looks the best on 14 Aida. I don't know why. This is 18 Aida. It's really pretty. Makes really, really nice flowers. And 28 Lugana. You can see how the green kind of changes a little bit between the Aida and Lugana. It's more of a grayish green, almost a bluish tint to it, and then the very green on the Aida. So that's all I have dyed right now. I have a lot more colors than that on my website. I need to go back through and redo some of my pictures because I know I am not a very good photographer. I try, but alas, they are not perfect. But this is a lot of fabric. I have to go cut these up now. All right, the video is really done now. I'll see you guys later. Bye.